All right, everybody. So, welcome to our ELD Essentials. My name is Tania Guy, and I'm a customer success manager here at NBI for over 5 years. And today you will also be meeting Zach Henderson, which is the team lead of the support team here, the client solutions. And also, what we will be doing is presenting Geotab Drive. So, it's really going to be the application our drivers are using. All right. So for our agenda and housekeeping, of course, our introductions have been done. So I'm going to let you know a little bit about NBI and Geotab. We will show your ELD reminders, and then we will go right into the live training of the Geotab Drive. Once we've completed, there will be a time for a Q&A section. Please, if you can, write your questions within the Q&A. We'll do our best to answer as the training is going, but we should have some time reserved at the end to cover some of those questions. If ever some are missed, nothing is lost. We will be sending all the information with the deck. You'll have answers to all your questions. All right. So, and there will be a little survey following the webinar. To let you know a little bit about Northern Business Intelligence, we are located here in beautiful Halifax, Nova Scotia. We've been established since 2005. We have a great retention rate, as you can see, over 95%. We got great, strong partnerships, and we support over 800 clients. Our approach, what is most important for us, is our clients. So we always put our clients first. You get dedicated implementations, hands-on approach. You've got bilingual service. Si vous voulez en français, c'est possible aussi. Also, we definitely have professional services and software integrations, customized training to your needs, and a breadth of telematics. And for a little bit about Geotab, they have over 4 million vehicles connected and over 50,000 active customers worldwide. They're designed and manufactured in Canada since 2000. And of course, ELD certified in both Canada and the USA. Also, Canadian mandate. So, what is an ELD? It's basically a device that's electronic that communicates with a dashboard, a database on a web platform. It's installed within your vehicle, and it makes it easier for you to be able to follow your fleet, your drivers, and replaces paper logs for your drivers so they can do it all electronically. If you're wondering who needs to use ELD, federally regulated commercial carriers, so truck, tractors, trailers, and or if you have a greater weight of 4,500 kilos, or a bus with more than 10 people. You also have ELD exemptions, as you can see here, pertaining of certain situations. Also, a little bit about the reminders. Here you can see that it did become in force January 1st, 2023. And on our next slide, you will be able to see the dates for your area if you're in different provinces. And once you do receive the deck, if you want more information, don't hesitate to click on that hyperlink and go to Transport Canada's website. Here are a few of those dates that you can see per province here. So if I'm to give you a moment to take a look so that you can verify from your location when the mandate is effective or has become. And this here is not what we're going to be showing today. This is actually on the web platform, the My Geotab, the administrator view. And what you're seeing is the dashboard of this system that has reports that can be placed to give you an at-a-glance look and pull information constantly of the Geotab Drive application as well. And of course, please, if you can, put those questions in the Q&A. As I said before, we will do our best to answer during the training and at the end with the allotted time. But again, no fear. Just remember, we will send all the answers to your questions with the deck after everything has been completed. And just a little side note, yeah, we are not compliance officers, so we absolutely encourage you to visit your local DOT officer if you have any compliance questions that they can assist you with. And now I'm going to hand it over to Zach. It's his turn to perform, and you'll have a great training. Pay attention, everybody. Bye.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that wonderful intro, Tania. I see a lot of faces or a lot of names in here that recognize. A lot of people I know we've spoken to before. For those that don't know me, as Tania mentioned, my name is Zach. I am the team lead for the Client Solutions team here today. So today's webinar is really going to be focused on an ELD training from a driver's perspective using the Drive app. And with that, I have a couple of quick disclaimers at the very beginning. So the very first and most important disclaimer is I'm using a web page version of Geotab Drive that is not intended for drivers to use. So it is intended for training and testing purposes. And then with that being said, there are a couple of quirks that you may pop up. And if they do, I'll point them out. One of the main ones that might happen here is sometimes the web page refreshes and reloads. This doesn't happen to your drivers daily. This will only happen here in today's session. So without further ado, we'll jump right into it. So the very first page that we see here is the main login page, and this is the page that drivers will be presented when they log into Geotab Drive on their phone or on their tablet. What your driver will need to do is they'll need to make sure that they enter their username that they log into Geotab with, and then generally all they need to do is click on next, and it'll ask them to enter their password. What can also be helpful is on this page in the top right corner, there is an options button. So this options button allows you to specify the database and the server that you're logging into. So typically the database name is the company name. If you're ever unsure about what your database name is, feel free to reach out to us at support or to your CSM. We'll be able to make sure that you have that information. But the server will always be my.geotab.com. So if drivers are having issues logging in, typically one of these settings is incorrect. So in our case, we're logging into a demo database and we're using a demo driver, so the information is set accordingly. When we click on next, it'll ask you for the password. In my case, because I'm using a web browser, it autofills, so I can just click on my password in the list. Otherwise, your drivers would just need to enter in this information from the keyboard. When we click login, it'll take a moment. It'll synchronize a few things behind the scenes, and then it'll ask you to select a vehicle that you're logging into. This is another one of those quirks about using a computer and not a phone or a tablet, is the computer doesn't have a GPS in it, so it doesn't know where I am. So what the app will do is it'll try to find vehicles that are nearby to your location. And it'll show them automatically in the list. So in our case here, the laptop doesn't have GPS, so it shows nothing. But what you can do is you can search for the vehicle using any identifying information for that vehicle, whether it's the name, parts of the VIN, serial number of the Go device, you can enter those in. So if we type in demo, we can find the demo vehicle that we will be using today. And then as a driver, what we would do is we would click on this vehicle, and then the system will do a little bit more synchronization behind the scenes. So this page can take a second to load, but once it finishes loading, we'll see the vehicle that we've selected at the very top. If for whatever reason, maybe we misclicked the wrong vehicle, there is an X button, and if you click that, it'll detach the vehicle and take you right back to the previous screen. However, the button that we generally do need to click is the trailers. So if you had a trailer assigned before you logged out, the vehicle may still have it attached, so you may not need to click anything. But if there isn't a trailer that shows, you need to click on the plus button, and it'll show you trailers that you've recently used. If this is your first time logging into Geotab or you've never used a specific trailer before, this list will be empty, and that is normal. What you will need to do if the list is empty is you will need to type into the search trailers box, and then when we type in a trailer name, for example, the demo trailer here, we see two things. We see one, the demo trailer is selectable, and if we click on the entry here, we can see that it selected the trailer up at the very top, and again, allows us to detach it if we misselected a trailer. However, the extra piece here is an optionally configurable piece that allows drivers to create trailers that aren't found automatically. So because the specific word that I typed in demo there isn't a trailer with just that name specifically. It allows us to add one. We aren't going to go through that process today, but this is something that can be enabled or disabled as necessary. So I'll click continue to select my trailer, and then we see we have our vehicle, demo vehicle, we have our trailer, demo trailer, and then we also have a field for shipments. So if you are required to track and note your shipment information on your HOS logs, you will need to click this plus button, and then the system allows you to enter in the fields as required. If you don't need to, you can skip over that and leave it blank, and then at the very bottom, there is a save and continue button. So once we have the vehicles, the trailers, and any applicable shipments that we might need to track, and we're all ready to go, we click Save and Continue. And then this time it synchronizes a few more readings, and it can take a little bit longer to load as well. So this next page that we're presented is the Verify Logs page. So every day, the drivers will need to sign off on their logbook just like they would on paper. So this is the equivalent digital signature for that. The app will ask you to verify logs either when you log in or when you log out, depending on when there are unverified logs. If you verify everything at the end of the night, you won't see this page at the beginning of the morning. What you can do from here is you can verify each individual day. So for example, we see yesterday, March 24th, we can verify these logs specifically. There wasn't a lot that was done. It was mostly off duty with a very short on duty period. But then as we scroll down, we can see other days a little bit further with specific hours of service logs in here as well. So if everything in here was correct, what we would want to do is we would want to click this Verify All Days button. And when we do, the system gives us a quick check just to make sure that, yes, everything I've selected is correct, and I do want to verify my logs. If there's anything that is incorrect or may need to be adjusted or maybe need some additional notes, you can skip at the very bottom as well. So if we click the Not Ready button, right next to the Verify button, we have a skip, and it'll take us over these, and then it will ask us again later if we want to verify those logs when we log out. So for today, I will click Verify All Days, and I will say, yes, everything I've entered is correct. And then it'll take us to another page. So this page here is only shown if there are unidentified logs on a vehicle. And what that means is that this vehicle was driven, but nobody was signed into Geotab Drive to claim these logs automatically. So every time a vehicle is driven, on-duty and driving logs are going to be created for that vehicle. And if there's a driver assigned to the vehicle signed in through the app, those logs will go to them automatically, and we don't need to do anything. In this situation here, nobody was signed into the vehicle, but the vehicle moved yesterday, moved several times. So the system is asking us, as the driver, were these you? So as a driver, if these were me, what I would want to do is I would click on the record specifically, so the driving and the on-duty here. Maybe the ones yesterday weren't me, so I won't select those, and then we'll scroll through, review everything, and select everything that is yours, and then you can click Assign to Me. If nothing in here is yours, you can click Skip, but every time somebody logs into a vehicle that has unidentified logs, this page will show. So either the driver who is responsible for these records needs to accept them when logging in, or an administrator through the administrator portal can assign these logs to the appropriate driver. What I'm going to do is I'm going to claim responsibility for them as the driver. So I will click Assign to Me for the 2 logs for today that I had selected. So when I click Assign to Me, the system just asks me again to make sure that, yes, I do want to do this and everything I am selecting is correct. And then the extra piece is, because I'm adding logs into my logbook, it may change my availability. So this is just a warning for the drivers as a final step. And I will say, yes, I do want these logs because they were me. So once I click OK, it'll take a second to load, and then it'll bring us to our asset inspection. So for the assets, we see both the vehicle and the trailer. We can see that there were inspections done yesterday at 9:30 in the morning for both, and we're going to do inspections for both. So if we click into my vehicle, I'm going to click the inspect button here at the top. We can see the previous inspection, and if we were to click the blue bar, it would show us all of the details of the previous inspection. So if there's any known issues with the vehicles or anything the driver may need to be aware of, they can review that as well. But below that button is a new inspection. So the very first question that the system asks is, which type of inspection is this? Is this your pre-trip? Is this your post-trip? Or is this an in-trip, something that happened in the middle of the day, but you might not be done with the day? In our case, I'm going to say this is my pre-trip. So I will select the pre-trip inspection. And then the second question is, which inspection list do you want to use? So we have the Schedule 1 list loaded into the system. If you don't have that loaded in, we can assist to make sure that you have that set. But if you have custom inspections that you might need or might want to have your drivers log information for, you can add them into the system alongside Schedule 1, and the drivers can choose the inspection that they need to do from the dropdown. Once you have an inspection set, that is the default every time you log in, so you don't need to keep flip-flopping unless you're doing different types of inspections for different types of assets. And then below that is everything in the Schedule 1 inspection. So the first section is the air brake system. And when we click into this, it'll show us all of the major and all of the minor defects. And yeah, so what your drivers will need to do is they'll need to click through each of the different sections, just like they would follow through the inspection list on paper. And then for anything that is defective or anything that has an issue, we would click on the Add Defect button. What we'll do for the first piece of the demo, for the vehicle, is we'll say that everything is actually perfect. So we'll scroll down, assuming that we've gone through all of these sections like we're supposed to. And then at the very bottom, we have some general information. So the first piece that we can change is the inspection location. So Geotab will automatically pick up the location where the vehicle is parked. However, if you're parked at maybe the edge of a parking lot or off on the side of the road, it may pick up the civic address of a building next door. In our case, it did. So what we can do is we can click on this pencil icon and we can adjust the address if we need to. If everything is still correct as it is, we don't need to click on that button. We can leave the information in the system as it is, but if we need to change it, we have the ability to do so. And then underneath that, in the other information, we have fields that we can modify. So the system automatically pulls the odometer and the engine hours from the vehicle. In our case, we can see the odometer and engine hours for my vehicle. If there's any issues with these, you can click into them or you can tap into them on the app. And you can adjust them as required. And then the second two, the height and the width of the load, these are optional. So if you're required to track this information and report this information, you will need to fill in these fields. If you are not required to track this information, you can leave these blank. And then at the very bottom, we have any remarks on the inspection. So if we wanted to leave a note about whether or not this inspection was good, or maybe there's an issue that's not quite an issue yet, but we want someone to know about it, drivers can leave their notes. And then at the very bottom, because no defects have been marked off, we can see that there are no major or minor defects found. And we have a little green checkbox, or a little checkbox in the green button for that. So for my vehicle, there are no defects. So I will click into this message, and it'll show me a message asking us to confirm that we have inspected the vehicle properly. The message that you see specifically will vary because it is based off where the vehicle is located. So if there is a specific standard in maybe Canada versus the US, you'll see a different message. So I will say, yes, everything that I had done is correct. And then the system will show me, it'll take me back to the asset inspection because I still have an inspection to do on my trailer, but it also does a few extra things behind the scenes. So it timed how long it took the inspection to do. So we see the message at the very top of the screen says asset inspection complete in 4 minutes, 5 seconds. And then the driver was placed in on duty 4 minutes ago. So the inspection is an on duty, it is something that you do while you're on duty. So the system will put you in on duty when you started the inspection, once you finish the inspection. So even though I finished it here at 2:19, it backdated it the 4 minutes that it was supposed to. And then on the vehicle, we see that the inspection was complete, and then we have the date and the time for that inspection as well. But if we move into my trailer and we click on the inspect button, we'll do the same process. So we are presented with the same screen. We'll choose the inspection type as pre-trip for this one. And then under the checklist type, we can also choose different inspection lists if there are different inspection lists for the trailers. So we have schedule 1 in here by default, but then we have a different secondary list as well. So if there are multiple inspections or multiple items that you're looking for your drivers to track, you can add in multiple inspection lists, depending on whatever fits the business best. And then the rest of the process is the same. So for this one, we'll click into the air brake system. We'll click into and we'll add a defect. So we see the audible air leak here. We'll click the add defect button, and then the system marks it. So next to air brake system, we see the one defect. And then under audible air leak, we have the option to leave specific remarks about this defect without necessarily leaving a remark on the inspection as a whole. And then this here is another minor piece where the web page version deviates from the app. So what your drivers will have on the app is they'll have an extra button on the far right corner of this text field to allow them to take a picture and upload that and attach it with the inspection as well. So if it's easier to describe the issue with a picture, there will be a button to take a picture and that will get uploaded into Geotab. And then as we scroll down, drivers would also continue to click through the different inspection pieces, the different individual parts. And then at the very bottom, we have the same asset or the inspection location pulls through the exact same. And we have the pencil icon just in case we need to make an adjustment. And then under the other information, we have one new field. We have the hubometer. So if you are tracking this information for your trailers, the drivers can add that in on their inspection. Similar to the height and the width of the load, if you're not tracking this or not required to use it, you can leave these fields blank. So then at the very bottom, we have a remark that we can leave on the inspection as a whole. And then because we've noted that there is a defect, we don't have a green button that says no major or minor defects found. We have a blue button that says done. When we click on this, it shows us the same message and the same standard as well. So if you're logging a defect, you will see the message will change automatically, and then all of that information will make its way into the admin portion along with any pictures that may be attached as well. So we will mark this inspection as done. We will say, yes, we have done everything correct. And then it will bring us into our main dashboard. So your dashboard may look a little bit different than the one we have here for demo, but a lot of the buttons will be the same. So the buttons that everyone will have are the HOS, the asset inspection, the messages. You should have the ELD info add-in as well. And if there are extra custom add-ins that you've added into your system, you'll see additional line items in between these top three and then the vehicle and the roadside check information at the bottom. The next button that everyone will have is this one here that will show you your asset and your trailer that you have attached. And then the most important button in the system is the roadside check, and we'll go through that towards the end. And then there's optional settings and quick navigation items at the very bottom. So because we were just logging a DVIR with a defect, we're going to continue down that path. However, this is a very good point to note that as long as your driver logs in and gets to this dashboard page, if they see themselves in on duty, they're good to go. So from here, the system will automatically create driving logs and on-duty records as the drivers are moving through their day, and we'll go through a little bit more of the specifics on that in a second. But once they've hit this page, they're logged in, they're assigned to their vehicle, they're good to start driving, and then come back to the app when they need to log additional notes or off-duty time accordingly. So in the asset inspection, we see that there is something that needs review. So before a new inspection can be done on the trailer, the defect needs to be addressed. It doesn't necessarily need to be resolved or repaired, but somebody does need to mark that it's been known about and something is being worked on. So up at the vehicle, we have a nice blue button to let us do a new inspection, but for the trailer, we have to repair it first. When we click into this, it'll show us the inspection that we can expand to review any extra notes that were left. But we do also see the unresolved defects. So for this, we either need to mark it as resolved. So if it was fixed by the shop over the weekends, we can mark that be done. If it's something that's not necessary for the safe operation of the vehicle, you can mark that as well. And then once we click save, it'll address that defect and allow us to do new inspections for this asset. So I will mark this as not necessary. I will click Save. System will take a second to load, and then it will show me the inspection and ask me to certify that everything I've entered is correct. So we marked the defect as resolved. It lets us know in here as well. We can leave extra information, or we can just certify what we've said. It brings us into a new inspection. We can either do a new inspection now, or if we don't need to, there's a back arrow in the top left corner of the page. So when we click onto that, we can see our vehicle and our trailer, and both of them have an inspect button to start again. If we go to the very bottom of the page and click on the dashboard, it'll bring us right back to where we were. And now we can see under the asset inspection, instead of having an inspection that needs to be addressed, it just lets us know that we can do a new inspection. So everything is good to go with that. So the next piece that we're going to click into is the HOS. So even before we click into our hours of service, we see that we are in on duty. And when we click into it, we get all of the rest of the information. So at the very top of the page, we see a blue bar with our timer that's running out the most, or the soonest. So there is a little icon to the left of it as well. And then in the information on the left, we have all of our timers for the day. So at the very top, we see that we are in the Canada Cycle 1, south of 60 rule set. If we needed to change that, we have a little pencil icon where we can select a different rule set. So if we were going, say, down to the US, we could change into a US rule set. Because we are in a Canadian rule set, it also shows us our start of day. Information is up at the top, and then all of our timers. So we have 9 hours, 49 minutes of driving left. We also have 9 hours, 49 minutes of duty time left. And the icon that is left, or to the left of the duty, is the same as the icon in the top blue bar. So we can see that that timer is our duty timer. Underneath that, we also have our workday left. We have 10 hours and 7 minutes left in our workday, and we have 65 hours, 47 minutes in our cycle. In Canada, drivers are also required to take 24 hours of rest every 14 days. So the system will track that through a quick timer for you, even outside of the cycle. If you do a cycle reset, those are 36 hours, so those are above the 24 required. So that should kind of count for both. But if you don't do a reset, you do still need to take 24 hours at some point. And then underneath that are two kind of quick check boxes. We have the rest required that we needed for the day, and we have our off-duty required that we needed for the day. So everything is nice and easy. And then in the right-hand side, we have our 4 duty status buttons. So drivers can always click on a duty status button, and it will put them in that new status. So right here, I clicked the off-duty status, and at the very bottom of the page, it lets us know that we are now in off-duty as the confirmation that, yes, that button was clicked. Now that we are in off-duty, we have an extra timer showing. So this is our rest duration timer, and this tells us for how long we've been in off-duty or sleep report. In Canada, there is a requirement for off-duty time to be in blocks of 30 minutes to count towards your rest. So if you were to manually change your status, say to on duty here, you're going to get a pop-up on your screen letting you know how long you've been in your rest status. So at the time I clicked that, I was in rest for 37 seconds. The system lets me know that minimum break time is 30 minutes and then asks if I still want to complete it. If I was at 29 minutes, 30 seconds, I would probably click no. It would keep me in off duty and it would continue to tally up the rest duration. So then let's say we waited those extra 30 seconds we needed to, we see that the timer has changed. It's now 1 full minute. And when I go into on duty this time, it shows us 1 minute, 11 seconds. So these timers will keep tracking and will keep updating. And then if I say, yes, I do want to change my status, the system changes our status. So we go into on duty, that timer is gone, everything is good to go. So the system will automatically change the driver between driving status and on-duty status, depending on what the vehicle is doing. When you start driving the vehicle, it'll automatically put you into drive until you stop driving that vehicle. When you stop driving or turn off the vehicle, the system starts a timer behind the scenes for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, if there's been no interaction with the buttons, the driver hasn't manually selected the on-duty status, The system will present a message to the driver saying, hey, we've detected that you've been stopped for 5 minutes. Would you like to go into on duty, or would you like to stay and drive? If the driver clicks, yes, I would like to go into on duty, then the system will put them into on duty 5 minutes ago when they stopped. So there is a grace period before swapping, but it doesn't take any additional time from you. It will backdate it to when you stopped the vehicle. If you ignore the message, it'll sit there for another minute, and then at the 6-minute mark, it'll just automatically put you into on duty 6 minutes ago when you stopped the vehicle. The system will never put you into off duty or sleeper berth automatically. So if we were driving our vehicle, we forgot to look at Geotab Drive, we never updated anything, it's entirely possible that we might be still in on duty overnight when we come back in the next morning. And then when we look at the system, we have no hours because we did not take a rest. That can be corrected, but there's a few limitations to editing those logs, and we'll look at that in a second. The last few notes over on the status page are these two buttons at the bottom of the timers. There's an option for our cycle recap, which will show you how much time you've used each day of your cycle, and then how much cycle you'll have available tomorrow. So yesterday, I used 2 minutes of my cycle, and today I've used 4 hours and 15 minutes of my cycle. So I have a grand total of 65 minutes, or 65 hours, 44 minutes. And then that will continue to tally as we drive and as we are on duty. When you do a cycle reset, this will automatically reset and show you the full 70 hours. The other button is the exemptions button. So these are optional statuses that drivers can enter when they need to. And all of these can be configured in the admin portal to allow or disallow drivers to use these. So the very first one is adverse driving conditions. And this one actually has a helpful pop-up message as well that I'll show here on the screen. So the intention for the adverse driving conditions is it will allow the driver a few extra hours in their day to get to a safe location if a situation occurred that they could not have reasonably predicted or known. So if you're driving down the highway, there's a major crash and the highway shut down for an hour, and then you run out of hours on that, you can apply the adverse driving conditions just before, get somewhere safe, and then it will use that time for. There are a couple of rules behind that, so it's always a good idea to double check the DOT just what the specific parameters for using this are, but the system also shows a message. So if you wanted to apply that, all you have to do is click the apply button. The system will give you a message and ask for a reason, and then once you provide a reason, we click apply, and you're now in adverse driving conditions. The other option that we have that can also be enabled or disabled and is shown depending on your rule set is the off-duty deferral. So if you need to defer any time following the deferral rules, all you need to do is click the apply today, and then the system will ask you how much of the 2 hours that are eligible would you like to defer. And it will keep track of that for you automatically. The other two buttons will change how driving records are created. So if you enter into the yard move status, the system will put you into on duty. It'll put you into the yard move exemption, and it will allow you to drive the vehicle in the yard up to 32 kilometers an hour. As soon as you go above 32 kilometers an hour, the system will automatically disable the exemption and put you into drive. If you stay below the 32 kilometers an hour, it will keep you in on duty and tally up the distance with the note that it was yard move. If you turn off the vehicle, it will also end the exemption, but it will leave you in on duty. So if you needed to reapply that, or you needed to continue yard moving after turning the vehicle off and then back on, you need to reapply that exemption. And very similar rules apply to the personal conveyance. So in Canada, there is a maximum daily limit of 75 kilometers, no speed limit, but a distance limit for personal conveyance. When you apply personal conveyance, the system will provide you a message as well, just noting the same things I'm going to note here, where if you go beyond that 75 kilometer limit or whatever has been set in the system, it will automatically end your personal conveyance and put you into drive. Otherwise, all of that time is counted in off duty for personal use of the vehicle. The same thing applies here, where if you turn off the vehicle, it will end that exemption. So if you were to If you were intended to go drive to a place, you turn off your vehicle there, you stay in the place, maybe it's a restaurant. By the time you leave, if you need to use personal conveyance again, you need to reapply that exemption. So in our case, I'm just going to click cancel in here, but there are additional modifiers to that you can apply. At the top of the page as well, there is a second tab for the logs. When we click into here, we see a whole bunch of information. So any logs that require action will be noted in a yellow box up at the top of the page. If you click into this, it'll show you the days and which action is required. In my case, because I'm using this through the web page that does not have GPS, a couple of the logs are missing location because location services are not enabled on the laptop. Typically, as long as location services are enabled on your phone or your tablet, you won't run into that action specifically. Below that is your date selector. So you can go back and forth between individual days using the arrows. You can also click on the date and it will allow you to select any day that you want to go back to. If you're in the Canada Cycle 1 rule set, the system will show you up to 28 days worth of records in the app. If you need records older than 28 days or older than the rule set allows, they need to be collected from the admin portal. Underneath that is our graph. So the graph should be very familiar if you've used HOS before. This is just automatically calculated and automatically shown based off the hours that you have entered into the system. So we have our 4 different statuses: off duty, sleeper bird, driving, on duty here on the left-hand side. And then each of the records in the graph will be color-coded depending on what they were. So in our case here, I logged out earlier and verified one of my records. So we can see a nice green piece letting us know that we have verified something. And if I go back to yesterday, all of the logs were verified because we verified them when we logged in. Anything that has not been verified yet will just be shown in gray, and anything that has been changed will be shown in yellow. If there are any violations, you'll see a big red highlight for that as well, and then the break time will be shown in blue. Personal conveyance and yard move will be shown in their respective status. So for example, personal conveyance will be an off duty, yard move will be an on duty, but instead of a solid line, they will be dashed lines like they show in the page at the bottom. And then on the far right side, you have all of your timers. So it tallies up every minute that you've been in the different statuses and then how many hours have been in that day specifically. And then as we scroll down a little bit further, we have some quick information. So today I've driven 24 kilometers and I've been in on duty for 4 hours and 20 minutes. Even further below that are all of the specific hours of service records. So the most recent records are at the top. So we can see when we logged in here, the system put us into on duty, like it mentioned, at 2:15. We have the different inspections that we did. So our pre-trip at 2:19, our pre-trip at 2:22. We have the repair that we made at 2:25, and then the certification a few seconds later. So everything that's done, all of those notes will be shown in the logs here. We can also see the off-duty record that I created when we clicked the off-duty button, and then the on-duty when we came back out of off-duty. Below that as well are all of the different hours of service records. So we have some driving statuses and we have some on-duty statuses. So at the very beginning of the session, one of the pages that we ran into, one of the pages that we clicked into, was the unidentified records, and those were the records from 8:30 this morning. So we can see that my vehicle here was driving at 8:33. If we click into the log, we can see that we can't change anything. So this is a very important note. Any drive status is essentially set in stone. We can't change the status, we can't change the date, we can't change the duration. That information is required by law and thus can't be changed. However, there is a little bit of flexibility. So because this was originally an unassigned driver log, and we can see here at the very bottom under the origin, it says unassigned driver log as well, maybe I accidentally clicked the button. So if I accidentally accepted this log when I wasn't supposed to, there is an unassigned button at the very top. So we can put this back into the original unassigned pool. So if I do this, it'll take both the driving and the on-duty record, And if I click confirm, those logs will get reassigned to unidentified driver. And if I click back to my HOS logs, oh, actually, sorry, I do need to save first. Moving it to assigned. Anytime you make a change to a log, you will need to leave a note on that log as well. And these notes will be shown to any officers in any inspections. So I'm just going to leave a quick note saying I'm moving it to unassigned. When I click on save, my logbook is different. So those logs are no longer in my book. So there's no longer on duty or driving time at 8 in the morning. My on duty time has also changed because I was no longer in on duty from 8:40 or 8:50 onwards. So instead of the 4 hours, 20 minutes that we had, we now have 1 hour and 8 minutes. And if I scroll down a little bit further, we see the same changes in those records. So the other logs that I have in here were logs that were created because I was assigned to the vehicle and driving. So if we click into the drive log at 11:48, we can't change anything. So this log was created because I was signed into the vehicle and assigned to this vehicle 4 hours of service records. The origin is noted as an automatic system log. We can't change anything. What this also means is we have to be very mindful and we have to make sure that we log out of the system when we're no longer responsible for a vehicle, because if we are still assigned to that vehicle, we are still considered responsible for the vehicle, and the logs will get assigned to us and we cannot move them. There is no option for the driver to move them. We don't have the ability to move them. The hours of service rules say that these logs can't be moved. So it helps a lot to make sure that we don't put ourselves into situations where we have logs that we shouldn't, because we really can't change anything about them. What we can change is we can change manual logs, and we can make a few edits to automatic logs. So if I were to click into this off-duty record, we can see that I have a couple of different edit buttons because the origin on this one was manual. So because I clicked the button that created this record, maybe I clicked it at the wrong time, or maybe I clicked the wrong button. We can change this. So if I were to change the status from off-duty to sleeper berth, just to make it a nice bright red color, we can update that. If I accidentally created the log at the wrong time, you can update that. If the log wasn't created for the right duration, you can update that. The exceptions to this are any changes cannot impact an existing drive log or the beginning of an existing on-duty record from the system. So if I were to just leave a quick note, we'll do quick note as testing and we'll save, we can see that that rule, or that hours of service record has been changed from off-duty to sleeper berth, and our note has been logged as well. So if it's a manually created one, we do have a bit of flexibility, but if it's automatic, there really is not a lot we can do as well. And then the on-duty records. So this on-duty record here is an automatic system record, but we can change the status, sort of. So if we were to try and change the status, the system will give us a pop-up record, or a pop-up noting that we can't actually change the beginning of this on-duty log. So what the system will do is it'll create a new record after this record. In our case, I'm not going to click yes for today's demo. I'm going to show you a different way that we can do this. But the reason that this may be relevant is if we forget to log out at the end of the night. So what we can see here is that I was in on duty from 12:02 to 12:10. I can't change anything between 12:10, 12:27, or 11:48, 12:02, but for this on duty record, I can create a log that interferes with it using this add log button. So if you forgot to log out the previous night and overnight all of your records are on duty, you can click this add log button and you can add in that off duty record for the time that you need. So in our case, I'm going to choose sleeper berth just for the purposes of demos so that we get a nice bright red color to see something different. But we would choose our status. We would choose the date that we're creating this record for. So if I go back down here to 12 and let's say we'll create a log at 12:05. When I click done, selects that, selects our vehicle, and we need to leave an annotation, and we'll just do testing again. When I create this, we'll see on our graph very quickly that there is now a new sleeper berth record where there wasn't a record before. And we can see that it got added in after the on duty, but continues up until the drive log. So it only continues for the 5 minutes that it was allowed to move. So if you forget to log out at the end of the night, we can just click the plus add log record and add in our off-duty time for when we were supposed to sign off. And then the very last thing on this page is the malfunctions button. So you may have noticed this bright red note at the top of my screen, just letting me know that there's a malfunction or an issue with either my device or my vehicle. You can either click on that message or the malfunctions button here in the HOS logs page as well. They both take you to the same place. So when we click on this message, it shows you everything that is going on. So there are some more unidentified driving logs because I did not accept anything from yesterday or the day before. So those are noted. There was also some issues with engine sync for my vehicle, just with how my vehicle is configured. So it lets you know in here, if it's a non-critical message, you can clear it. And if you're ever curious as to what may cause these messages, you can click on the question mark, and the system provides a helpful message explaining what causes this malfunction. So if it's something that needs to be corrected, we have some guidance to correct that. You can reach out to us. We're more than happy to help with that as well. But the drivers may also be able to just clear it and it gets logged in the background. And that's really everything there is about the core of the app when it comes to HOS and asset inspections. So I'm just going to click on the dashboard button at the bottom to go back to the main dashboard. So the next very important button is the roadside check button. So if your drivers are ever in a situation where somebody other than you or the driver wants to see their hours of service records, maybe they're pulled into a scale house or off on the side of the road, they need to click this button. When you click into roadside check, it'll ask you to set a one-time PIN. You don't need to remember this PIN, but it will lock the app into this mode. And it cannot be exited unless you either drive the vehicle, log out of the app, or enter in the PIN. So I'm going to enter in an amazing PIN of 1234 that no one will ever guess. I'll set that, and then it'll ask me to confirm. And now that we've set that, we're in our roadside check mode. Before we go into the details here, if we were to click on the exit button in the top right corner, it asks us for that PIN. So the tablet could be handed over to an officer if they're in an area where that doesn't have coverage and they wanted to review the logs on the tablet, or they can electronically transfer it and then they won't need this. But the tablet or the Geotab Drive app is locked into this mode, so they can't go clicking through things they're not supposed to. And then at the very top is the electronic transfer. So if the officer has an email that they can receive these logs from, the driver can enter in the officer's information, any additional comments that the officer may have needed or wanted on those logs, and then they just need to click the transfer button. The method in which the transfer happens is a little different between Canada and the US. So the system will show different pages depending on where you're physically located. If for whatever reason it doesn't automatically detect, you can click the I'm not in message and it will automatically change the transfer method. So these are the rules and the options for the FMCSA in the US. And if we're not in the USA, we're in Canada, these are the options for Canada. If you're in an area with no coverage or you're unable to transfer the logs for whatever reason, there is a compliance print button here. And this button is fully compliant. And it will show all of the information that the officer needs in the inspection, but only the information that the officer needs. So if you recall, on the HOS page, we could see 28 days worth of logs, but on this page, we only have the 14 days that we need. So the officer can't go through additional logs that they don't need, but they can go through everything necessary for the inspection. Underneath that, under the ELD report, is all of the general information that's needed. So ELD certification info, Geotab info, vehicle info, license info for both the vehicle and the driver. You have vehicle odometer information, and then you also have your graph. So one very notable exception or difference between this graph and the graph that we just saw on the HOS page is this graph won't show violations automatically, but it will show the logs as they are. So the onus is still on the officer to review the logs, understand the logs, and detect or determine any violations according to the rules. The system's not going to put up a bright red flag and say, give this guy a ticket, here's a violation. They still have to do their job. But then below that are all of the individual records. So we can see all of the duty statuses that were created, all of the date and timestamps, the vehicle, and other general information. Underneath that as well, we have the logins and logouts. So you can see there was a couple of logins earlier today, just making sure that everything worked before the demo. But you can also see that we certified our records and we certified our logs during today's demo. If there's any changes in the operating zone, so if the driver is going between US and Canada, you'll see rule set changes listed. You'll also see annotations for all of the logs. So all of those notes for the inspections or any other notes that a driver may have left on a log independently will be shown in the inspection. And then at the very bottom, you'll see when the engine turned on, when the engine turned off, and then any unassigned logs. So it is very, very important that unidentified logs either are annotated appropriately to note that it was a shop move or anything that may not be necessarily subject to hours of service use, or they're assigned to the appropriate drivers, because anything that is unassigned will be shown in an inspection, and the officers may ask questions. If we click on the back arrow in the top left corner, it'll take us right back to our roadside check. There is another tab in here as well for the asset inspection, and this will show you the most recent inspection done on either the vehicle or the trailer. And if we click on view for the trailer, it tells us when and where that inspection happened. It also tells us that there was a defect and it has been resolved. So this is that same information that we were entering earlier. And then there's an option to view the defect list as well. So if the officer needed to make sure that the list that was used is compliant, they can click into here, review all the information, and make sure that everything is marked accordingly. And then that's really everything there is about the roadside check. So typically, the drivers will just enter this page, they'll be given an email address, they'll click transfer, they won't need to think too much about it. But we do also have the compliance print button if you're unable to transfer for whatever reason. And then to exit, if we click on that exit button here again, it'll ask us for our PIN. If we forgot our PIN, we can just start driving the vehicle and it'll automatically take us out of roadside check, or we can log out, log back in, or we can enter in our PIN. In our case, we'll enter in the PIN that no one will guess of 1234, click continue, and then we're right back on our dashboard. And then just a few quick other buttons to know. So there is a messaging feature that will allow you to send messages back and forth between the driver and the administrators. These messages will show in the admin portal. They are not, they are shown to everyone who has access to the messages, so they're not private. Is a good thing to note about them. And then in here as well, there's a quick settings button and a more. So in the settings, there's options for drivers to change their passwords, send feedback directly to Geotab, but then there's also information about time zone and language preferences and company info towards the bottom. So if the driver ever needed to change these, they can change some of the settings independently. The administrators can also change all of these settings. And then the very last button on this page is the More button. So if we click on More in the bottom right corner of this the screen, we can choose to swap between light mode or dark mode depending on user preference. If it's easier to see one or the other, you can set that. There's quick navigation buttons to get into different sections, including the settings and the logout. And then there's also a button to force the synchronization. So typically the app will automatically synchronize behind the scenes. You won't need to think about it. However, if you've got a driver in the office or as a driver, you're talking with your administrator and one of you is making changes, but both of you aren't seeing those changes, if you click that check for updates button, it'll force the change right now. And then everyone will see the exact same version. Outside of very specific circumstances, you do not need to click this button. The app will keep itself up to date behind the scenes. And if we go back to our dashboard, we'll then kind of work into our logout procedure. So at the end of the day, the driver either needs to click on their name and then click on the logout button, or if you still have work to do and you're still in on duty, but you're not with a vehicle, you can click on your vehicle name in the center of the screen, and you can click on the X button, and it will take you all the way back to the very first page that we had where it asked us to select a vehicle. And there's an option in there to select no vehicle. And that'll allow you to be in the system, logged in as on duty, but you're not responsible for a vehicle. So if somebody else needs that vehicle, they can drive it without it impacting your logs. In our cases, we'll just log out using the regular procedure. So when we click on our name up at the very top, we'll click on the logout button. And the system's going to take us through a process. So the first thing it shows us is any trailers, any shipments that we had attached, and asks us if we want to detach them from the vehicle. So in our case, I am done with this trailer, so I will click the X button, and then it immediately takes us into our verify logs page. It will show us all of the records that we created today and ask us to verify that they are accurate and they are correct. I will say, yes, everything I have done so far is correct. It'll give me the little message again that it showed at the beginning of the day. I will click agree. And then it will let me know that I am currently in the on-duty status, and it will ask me if I want to be in a different status when I log out. So if I choose off-duty, it's already pre-selected, and then I click verify and log out, the system will spin for a second, and then once it's done, it'll take you back to the main login page. And at this point, we are in off-duty. We are not assigned to a vehicle. Our logs are not going to change automatically. And somebody else can attach themselves to that vehicle, or even if they don't attach themselves to the vehicle, the HOS logs that get created are going to go under the unidentified driver log as opposed to your log specifically. So when you're done with the vehicles, we need to make sure that we log out or disassociate in the app. That way we're not assigned to vehicles we aren't physically driving, and we don't get logs we're not supposed to. But once you hit this page, we're done. That is the Geotab Drive demo.
Thank you so much, Zach, for that great presentation. I'm sure that everybody had an opportunity to learn a lot about the application. If you'd never seen it, this is a great chance to get to view it. And for those of you that are using it, a few tricks on how to do certain things. Unfortunately, for the moment, we don't have enough time for a Q&A session, but please look for our email coming through, and you will be able to see all the answers to the questions that have been posed during the session, both in the chat and the Q&A section. And I just want to take a minute to let you know that we are launching and we are providing our second summit. So we're going to be having another big event here in beautiful Halifax, Nova Scotia. And we'd love to see you. Come join us. If you want the information, everything is right here. It'll also be on the deck. It's going to be during June 25th to the 27th, and it's quite extraordinary. And also you get a chance to go on a beautiful sailboat. So give us a call, reach out, let us know if you need anything at all. We are here to help always, and it's our pleasure to receive your questions and provide answers. And if you're looking for extra training, don't hesitate, reach out, let us know, come to your CSMs. I am one of them. We are there to help, and as well as CSS, also always there to help. So I wish you all a very good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. It was incredible to have you all here with us today. Bye, everybody.